Hey folks, so I find that I'm in the need of recycling some clay, and I thought I'd show you just how I did it. Um, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. You can choose not to do it, and that's certainly a valid choice. I do it because this is probably, you know, just this little bucket is probably $90 worth of clay right here, and it seems kind of silly to me to throw that away. So. Um, So what I got is I've got all of my clay, my trimmings, my pieces, my pads for throwing on a bat. Trimmings right there. Old pieces that I never bothered to bisque. And I keep them in this bucket, and I don't add any water to this bucket. I just let it completely dry out. And this stuff is all pretty much bone dry. You want it bone dry because it breaks down in the water a lot better when it's bone dry. If it's wet, then, or partially wet, then the outside is actually waterproof and you don't get more water on the inside, and it takes a lot longer to break down. The way I do it, it's about a 3-day process, sometimes 2-day process depending on the weather. This will probably be a 2-day process. So, clay, bone dry. In this bucket, I have all of my throwing water. When I'm done for the day or done for 2 days, depending on how much water I use up, I dump out my throwing water in this bucket. Why do you do that? Because one, I don't want to put throwing water down the drain. That's the quickest way to have to pay for a plumber. And two, because it's got a lot of clay in it in the form of slip and just excess clay. So keep it in this bucket. It settles out, which isn't a problem. It stays wet, and I keep a lid on it so I don't get very much evaporation on it. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your bone dry clay, and you want it in smaller pieces. So you can take it like this. This might be too big. The reason you want to break it up is because you want to make sure that there aren't any pieces that are still really wet. This is all pretty well and good dry. So you break it up and you just add it to this. You could do it the other way and just dump water on this bucket, and that would work almost as well. I just like doing it this way because it seems like an easier way for me. Yeah. Break it up. While you're breaking it up, you're looking to make sure it's still pretty dry, or make sure it's dry. You're also looking for things that you don't want in your clay. Pieces of sponge, pieces of plastic, pieces of brush. If you work outside like I do, leaves, buds from trees, feathers. I found all of that in there. In one bucket I found one of the tools I had been looking for a couple of weeks. Pieces that are really big and don't want to break up, you smack them with a hammer. For the most part, this clay is all one clay. Um, it's all a stoneware clay that I use, and there's a little bit of porcelain. So I don't know if you can see the difference. This is pretty reddish, pretty iron rich. It's a little bit of porcelain. I literally have less than a pound of porcelain in here, and I'm not anticipating needing any porcelain in the future, anytime soon anyway. If you use different clays, you might want to think about doing this separately for all of your clays. For as long as the clays all reach maturity at the same point, high fire clays with high fire clays, then there's no reason really to separate them. What you don't want to do is mix clays that are low fire and high fire, and then try to fire them at high fire. What happens is, when you do that, effectively what you're doing is lowering the firing temperature. So if you have a cone 10 clay and a cone 6 or cone 06 raku clay, you're going to end up with something that's roughly in the neighborhood of a cone 2. And for those of you who don't know what that means, the cone just indicates the firing temperature. So a cone 06 clay fires out relatively low as far as temperature goes. And a cone 10 clay is pretty much the top of the firing range. Industrial clays and true porcelain will fire out higher than cone 010, but for the most part, what most people are going to use, the top of what most people will use is going to be a cone 010. Or a cone 10, I'm sorry. So firing temperature, if there's an O in front of it, it counts backwards: 010, 09, 08, 07, and as you get closer to 0, you get hotter. Once you hit basically 0, there is no true 0. It goes 01, and then the very next cone temperature is 1. And once you hit 1, you start counting back up. I hope that makes sense. If not, send me a comment, yell at me. I'll try to explain it better. The next question somebody's going to ask, or somebody might ask me, is, say you have a low fire clay, an 06 clay, and a high fire clay, and what you really want to fire is medium fire, 05, 06, or cone 5, cone 6. Can you take the two and mix them together and get a medium fire clay? Well, the answer is not always. It doesn't always work that way. A lot of low fire clays are low fire clays because of the amount of flux that are in them. And if you have a high fire clay that is very low on certain things, alumina and silica, then those fluxes will act just as strongly on that, and you'll still end up with a low fire clay. Sometimes it will work. Sometimes you'll get a really nice mid-fire clay that will look really nice, and in a lot of cases, when that does work, you'll get a mid-fire clay that looks like high-fire clays. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll get something that is really unworkable. One thing I can say is try it. If try small amounts at first, and when you're trying it, keep track of what you do. So, you know, you start with a pound of low fire clay and a pound of high fire clay and mix them, and you get 2 pounds, and try it. See how it throws. See how it builds if you are a hand builder. Put it in the kiln. Fire it. Start it off at bisque temperatures. Bisques are usually 05, 04. Some people bisque higher than that, some people bisque lower than that. And it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Try it out at bisque temperatures and see what it does. Keep track of things like how much does it shrink? Does it shrink at all? Once it's bisqued, how much water does it absorb? How quickly does it dry out? Things like that. And then slowly increase the temperature that you fire it at. So you bisque at 04, and it comes out, and you really like it, and it doesn't shrink very much, and it doesn't absorb very much water, or you know, whatever. And then you try it, and then so you bisque at 04, and you go, you know, 02, and then you go cone 1, cone 3, and what you're looking for is how well does the clay mature? Does it mature at all? And every time that you fire it at a higher temperature, you keep track of the same things. How much does it shrink? How much water does it absorb? What does it sound like? Does it have a ringing tone? The more of a ringing tone it has, the closer you're getting to its maturity. When I say maturity, I mean, do I have anything out here? No. I don't have any bisque pieces out here. So maturity just means how much does the surface of the clay fuse together and seal. You know, and once you start getting into cone 1, cone 3, things like that, the other thing you're looking for is bloating, and that's basically exactly what it sounds like. Little sections where it looks like there's an air bubble, or it's, you know, swollen in a little bit there, and that's basically gas that's trapped on the inside of the clay body, trying to get out and not being able to. And once you start getting bloating, you're past the top end of what that clay is capable of, and you really don't want it to go any hotter. If say you get to cone 6 and it's still not mature, then what you'd want to do is the next set of tests you run, you use 1 1/4 pounds of your low fire clay and 3/4 pounds of high fire clay, and just keep changing that up and keep taking notes on it and all that. Alright, so we're at the bottom of the bucket pretty much, and all that's left is some pretty fine stuff. And I've gone through it all and got all the big chunks and broke those up. Most of them. And as soon as I say it, I find two more. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with how small and how dry all the rest of this is. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump the rest of it in there. Go ahead and move the camera over here. Alright, and so this is basically what you got. You got clay that's slaking down. You want to make sure that it's well and truly covered. None of it's in huge chunks. Alright. And so what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit overnight. And it's going to slake down and it's all going to be soupy in the morning. What I will do is overnight I will add a 1/4 cup of vinegar to it. And that just helps it break down a little bit better and yeah, and get really nice. Alright, so we'll come back and we'll look at it tomorrow morning. Alright, bye.